YouTube, what's good? Let's get serious. Um, Now that a few days have gone by and all of the vloggers and the tens of thousands of different YouTubers have posted their reaction videos about this most recent shooting out in Baton Rouge, where another innocent black man has been gunned down by police unjustly. Now that all the Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter news feeds have been flooded with people and their comments and their status updates about how this is wrong, how these things need to stop, and everyone's angry and up in arms. Now that that's starting to subside, I think now it's time to get serious. Now it's time to talk about potential solutions to these types of things to hopefully try and prevent them from continuing to happen. Because, I'm a fan in this platform of discussing situations and talking about current events when they happen, because without a discussion we really can't initiate any type of change. But the problem is, and it's been happening increasingly more and more lately with the introduction of all the technology in the past 15 years, with all the footage and the different platforms and social media, the world is able to see what has been going on for hundreds of years. Because this is nothing new. Um, as a black man myself, we have always been victims of the system in more ways than one. But to continue to talk about it is not really going to have any type of lasting effect or have any real tangible hope of any change being implemented. Something needs to be done. And I'm seeing a lot of people angry, a lot of people speaking out. But it's the same when anything else happens. There's a report that so far this year alone, there's been over 500 police involved shootings of innocent men, innocent black men. And I say innocent because these are men who have not yet been convicted of any crime. And they didn't even get their day in court. Police involved shootings are just astronomical. It's way out of proportion to anything that makes any sense. And these police officers get to pull their guns, they get to shoot us and ask questions later. And the majority of them, they don't get punished for their crimes. I can shoot someone, be arrested and charged and convicted and sent to prison for 10, 15, 20 years. But a police officer does it, and because they have a badge and because they say they felt threatened or like their life was in danger, it's almost a get out of jail free card. But to keep talking about it, it really starts to sound like a broken record at some point. For as long as there has been civilization, for as long as there has been organized government, there has been a need for policing factions to protect communities and the citizens and the general populations within those communities. The problem is when the citizens and the members of those communities are no longer being protected but being hunted. And just like any evil that exists, there needs to be an opposing good entity that needs to rise up in opposition of that evil. There needs to be an agency, there needs to be another entity introduced with full policing and arresting powers that any police officer, policing department within any community would have. Just like after 9/11, under the Bush administration, when new policies and new laws were implemented and new agencies were sanctioned, agencies like the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, was sanctioned to fight terrorism and to gather intelligence, and there was a need for it, so it was introduced. Something happened, and the government put something into place to prevent it from happening again. No reason I don't feel why it shouldn't or couldn't be done on the local level. It's not my job for the people who say, well, what you're suggesting really can't be done, or there's too much red tape, or it wouldn't be possible. It would be too hard for somebody to organize this, or to get the funds that would be needed to put these things in place. That's not my job. I'm just a citizen. I'm not a politician. I'm not a lawmaker. I'm not a policy maker. I'm not a part of the government. But what is my job, I feel, is to bring attention to whatever ideas I think are plausible, because I feel it is plausible, and just introduce it. And wherever it goes from there, it is what it is. But at least it's put out into the world, and I've done my part. Every police department in any municipality, any state, there's an internal affairs. But the problem with internal affairs is it's usually more often than not just administrative, and this so-called governing body is really on the same side of the same law enforcement officers, just like prosecutors. They're not really looking to seek justice for who really are their comrades, because they're all on the same page. What I feel needs to happen is there needs to be a separate agency that needs to be appointed by the federal government, just like an FBI or any other federal agency, that would have jurisdiction over any municipal and state policing agency that needs to have full arresting and policing powers, so that if a crime is reported against a citizen by a police officer, the same way if me as a citizen reported that someone assaulted me, and I call a police department in the locality that I live in, just like a police officer would be dispatched out to take my report, arrest, then ultimately charge somebody who committed a crime against me, there needs to be an agency, I feel, a separate policing faction that you can contact, report a crime that was perpetrated against you by a police officer, and there should be able to be officers or agents dispatched out to place that officer under arrest and then charge that officer. And then ultimately there needs to be a subset, not subsidiary, but a subset of the justice system, where you have judges, prosecutors, jury, that's made up of the members in those local communities, so that these police officers can start to face justice for what they're doing, because they're being protected by the same system that is supposed to be used to protect the citizens, when police officers who are granted the authority that they have and they abuse that authority, they're not really being treated the same way a criminal would, or a suspected criminal would be, who was not a police officer. And every once in a while they throw us a bone, and we'll see a police officer or a few police officers get convicted, or they'll be sent on administrative leave for X amount of weeks or months, or they'll be asked to resign. But the ratio to the police officers that are held accountable for these horrific offenses against the members of their community that they're supposed to be protecting and serving, for the most part, it just goes unpunished. And then, we'll get all up in arms about it, we'll scream about it, we'll make Facebook posts and YouTube videos, and then it'll die down until the next time it happens. I don't really care what it would take. It's not really my job to exert any brain power on what it would take to establish some sort of governing body to police these police departments. But I feel like, as a citizen, as a voter, as a taxpayer, that I feel like it's the only way that we as the citizens can be protected. because as long as the same people who are charged with getting justice for us against the same police officers who are committing crimes against us rather than protecting us, as long as those same people are essentially left to their own devices and left to police themselves, we're going to keep seeing things like this happen. And it's going to keep being the same outcome. And somebody will be dead, and somebody else's child will be without a father, somebody else's mom will be without a son or a daughter, and the cycle just perpetuates, just goes on and on. So I really try to avoid reporting news, reporting current events, because there are tens of thousands of YouTube channels out there that do just that. I don't need to do that. My 2 cents is more like 10 cents. And the point is to get deeper. We know what happened. We see it all over YouTube. We've seen the video. We've read all the Facebook posts. We've seen all the news updates. But no real solutions being offered. And rioting and burning shit down is really only destroying your city. It's really only destroying the places that you work and the places that you shop. And a lot of these police officers that commit these crimes within these communities that they're charged with policing, a lot of them don't even live in those communities. So they're going back home and you're destroying your own city. I don't know what it would take. I'm going to do some research to see what it would take to get the ball rolling on introducing some type of legislation, or even seeing if it's possible within the construct of this government. But I would almost go out on a limb and say I'm almost 98% sure that there is no reason why a separate division of the federal government or a separate entity or policing faction couldn't be sanctioned and introduced to really start to combat these types of issues. And I will report back after I do some research and see if there's anything that can be done, because at a certain point, talking is necessary so that we can all get on the same page and start to figure out if there's a way that we can come together and make changes and what those changes need to be. But at a certain point, talking just becomes a rubber stamp. At a certain point, the talking needs to stop, and we need action. So let me know what you guys think. Hit me up, my inbox, hit me up in the comment section. In the description section below, all of my social media platforms are listed there. Hit me up, because I really want to start like a little support group, and I really want people who are intelligent, people who are critical thinkers, so that we can come together and figure out if there's a way to really research this and see how we would go about putting it into place. I'm fine with all the vloggers who want to talk about this and be angry and put up their reaction videos, because it does need to be talked about. Showing anger and showing our emotion and showing that these types of things aren't okay is needed. There's a place for it. But then there's another part of it too, and we need action. And if no one else is going to be willing to do it, I'll do it. I'll see you on the next one. Peace and love.